Very good morning once again to all my loving viewers. I am once again with a new topic of your textbook Flamingo, the second poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum. I would be talking about the thoughts of the poet, the introduction, and the message, followed by the explanation. So I would like to begin with the thoughts about the poet. Stephen Spender was born in Kingston, London on 28th Feb 1909 to journalist Harold Spender and Violet Hilda Sylvester, a painter and poet. He was an English poet, novelist, and essayist. Through his powerful writings, both in prose and verse, he established himself as a prominent poet of the modern age. As a poet, he was sensitively alive to the contemporary social and political problems, and his poetry reflects his awareness of the wide world lying outside the presence of his individual self. His works concentrated on the themes of social injustice and the class struggle. He was appointed Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry to the United States Library of Congress in the year 1965. Some of his eminent works are Trial of a Judge in 1938, The Generous Days 1971, The Edge of Being 1949. He was nominated for Lambda Literary Award for Gay Fiction. He died on 16th July 1995, London. With this, I would now like to move on to the introduction of the poem. Children, an elementary school classroom in a slum beautifully brings out the contrast in Stephen Spender as a romantic poet torn by the aftermaths of two brutal world wars. He highlights in this poem the harsh realities of life as experienced by the slum children. With the gulf between the haves and the have-nots, means between the rich and the poor, increasing at an unimaginable pace. Pace means speed. The children in the slums are deprived of their basic right to education. Their eyes dream of a better future which is distant and beyond their reach. Now I would like to tell you about what message poet Stephen Spender is trying to reflect. Stephen Spender makes a frantic appeal to the educated and rich sections of society to better the lot of slum children whose only hope is education. Condemned as they are to a lifelong poverty, want, and dirt, these children must be provided opportunities to experience the beauty and joy of life and learning. The poet reviews the grim fact that humanity at large and governments in particular adopt a unfeeling, unsympathetic attitude to these children of a lesser God. The poem is a bitter criticism of the state of education in state schools in slums. With this, I would like to begin with the explanation of the poem. So let me tell you, in the first stanza, the poet here is trying to describe the condition of the children studying in an elementary school classroom in a slum. So let me read out the lines for you. Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor, the tall girl with a weighed down head, the paper-seeming boy, the rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease. His lesson from his desk at back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young. His eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. Now children, the poet Stephen Spender is describing an elementary school in a slum. He's describing the students sitting in a classroom. So he begins the first stanza with far, far from gusty waves. Now, what do you mean by far, far? Far, far means beyond their reach. He says, the children living in the slum look pathetic. Pathetic means P-A-T-H-E-T-I-C, means by looking at someone when pity arises in our hearts. We say the condition of such children is very pathetic. Now these children, they say they live in pathetic conditions. They are far away from the activity and jubilations of life. Now the children living in the slums, they are far away from the various activities that the children of rich and wealthy ones perform, and they are also far away from the jubilations of life, means the feelings of joy are known as jubilations. Okay, so these children living in the slums, they are far away. Gusty means they lack that energy, they lack that enthusiasm, they lack that liveliness in them. These children's faces like rootless weeds, and the children living in the slums, their faces are just like rootless weeds. Rootless weeds means the unwanted plants that are grown along with the wanted ones. Now what he wants to say, he's trying to say here that the slum children are not, admired and wanted by the rich and healthy people. And he compares them to the unwanted plants which grow on their own without being cared for. Okay? That means the children of slum are totally neglected. Their hair toned round their pallor. Now, they are so untidy, they are so ugly. Okay? Their hair are not made properly. They are all scattered around their faces. Okay? Now, the faces of these children have been compared to like the rootless weeds. Here, the poet has used a simile to compare the unwanted children of the slum to that of those unwanted weeds which are grown along with the wanted crops. Then he says, now he's trying to talk about the different students sitting in the classroom. He says that there is a tall girl seated in the classroom. Okay, the tall girl with a way down head. She's bowing her head down and sitting in the classroom. That means this girl appears to be burdened with poverty and the existing problems, or the another reason can be that she is totally exhausted. वो थक चुकी हैं, facing the various arising problems in her life, or maybe due to extreme poverty, now she's fed up of her life and she's just bowing her head down and sitting in the classroom. Okay? Then the poet talks about saying that maybe the girl might have bowed her head down. Maybe she's suppressed and burdened of misfortunes of life. Okay, children? Next, then he talks about another child who is sitting in the class, because now he's describing the children who are sitting in a slum classroom, an elementary classroom, the basic classes where the children take their education in the slum areas. Now he says there's a paper-seeming boy. Now what do you mean by the paper-seeming boy? Paper-seeming means there's another child sitting in the classroom who is very thin, lean. Now I would like to ask you why this child is very thin like a paper. Paper-seeming boy here is a metaphor used. Okay? Why is the child so thin? Maybe this little child is malnourished. Okay? That means he's undernourished. This little child is deprived of the basic amenities of life, is not able to avail proper food or the balanced diet. So that's the reason the child appears to be too timid and weak. He appears to be too thin. And this little child, paper-seeming boy with rat's eye. Rat's eye, this little child who is timid, he's having the eyes like that of a rat, full of anxiety, and is always in search of food. That means this unfortunate child is suffering from malnutrition, and thus what has happened? Because he's not able to avail proper diet and food, and that's the reason what he has attained, the stunted unlucky hare. Now he is the stunted unlucky hare. The stunted means the one, okay, whose growth has stopped or is not properly developed, and he is an unlucky hare. What do you mean? He's an unlucky, he's very unfortunate child of his ancestors, because he is the one who has attained a disease of twisted bones. Twisted bones is nothing, it is bent bones, or you can say the disease of rheumatism. He is suffering from the disease of rheumatism. He had attained this disease from his ancestors, from his purvaj. Unlucky, that's what is considered to be unfortunate child of his family who has attained this twisted bones disease from his ancestors. Now he is reciting a father's null disease. Now he is discussing about this disease that he had attained from he's talking about the twisted bones due to which his body has got deformed, and thus he is reciting about this disease, null disease, in the classroom. Now his lesson from his desk. Now there's another child sitting in the classroom who is reciting or answering to the various questions put up by the teacher in the classroom. So he's giving his lessons or he's reciting his lessons sitting from his desk. Now children, as you come across in the classroom, there are different kinds of students sitting, seated there. Maybe a tall girl, they may be a thin and lean boy, they may be a stout child sitting, or they may be a very short-heighted child sitting in the classroom. So in the same manner, in the elementary classroom, also there was another child sitting in that dim class. He was sitting on the last bench, unnoticed by the teacher, At back of the dim class, one unnoted means unnoticed. There was one more child, a young little child sitting in the classroom who was very sweet, very loving, adorable, and a very cute child sitting in that same classroom. Okay, beta? But he is indifferent from the rest children of the class because the other children appear to be sad, but this boy is different because his eyes live in a dream. See here, his eyes live in a dream. That means this particular child, this little cute innocent child, he lives in a dream, means he is dreaming of a better life, probably a better bright future. He is lost in his own imagination and is least concerned about the other students sitting in the classroom, and this little innocent child is not at all sad and gloomy like the other children. Now this little child who is living in dreams, he imagines of squirrel's game. Now what is this little child doing? This boy thinks of a squirrel's game. Squirrel's game is again a metaphor used, a literary device. Metaphor is used here. So it means that this little child is imagining his life to be as free and lively like a squirrel that plays in the open. Now, the squirrel, when he sees a squirrel jumping around, hopping around in the playground, and sometimes jumps into the hollow of a tree. Hollow means, there is a hole in the tree. So when he sees the squirrel getting into the hole and then again coming out of that hollowness, this little child, he dreams of being like that squirrel, very, lively, very free of stress. But he says he cannot be like a squirrel, but he has to sit in the dull and dreary classroom. Why he has to sit in the classroom? Because there is no other option. He has to be in that classroom. He has to sit in that classroom. Now the little boy imagines a tree room. He feels that hollowness in the tree. Okay? Tree room is what? That hollowness in the tree is filled with fun and mystery to the child, because he is imagining, why is the squirrel jumping into that hollowness of the tree, staying there for a moment, and then again hopping out of the hollowness of that tree. Okay, from that hole. Why is it entering in, coming out, and again jumping around in the open? So now here, see, as I told you, somewhere in the corner of this poorly lit classroom, there is a one little small young and sweet pupil sitting, who is unnoticed by others, and he is lost in his own world of his dreams. And he creates his own fantastic world where he plays and frolics around just like the squirrel in her tree room. That means वो भी अपने आप को बिल्कुल उस गिलहरी की तरह सोचता है कि वो कितनी आज़ाद है, कितनी अपनी इच्छा से वो उछल कूद कर रही है. How is the squirrel jumping around, hopping around in the open environment? Now, the dull and monotonous, environment of the classroom does not interest him at all. So this is about the first stanza, how the poet Stephen Spender is describing the children in a classroom. And this is in contrast to the gloomy classroom children. Contrast means the opposite. What is opposite? The little child imagining to be just like a squirrel, in the open, enjoying or dreaming of a better future, rather than that class in which all the other students are sitting dull, gloomy. So this is a contrast to the gloomy classroom. Okay, with this I would like to move on to the next stanza. I would like to read out here the lines. Our sour cream walls, donations, Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome, riding all cities, belt flowery tireless valley, open-handed map, awarding the world its world. And yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, were all their futures painted with a fog. A narrow street sealed in with a lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes and stars of words. Now children, in the second stanza, the poet Stephen Spender is trying to describe the elementary school classroom. Okay? He says, the classroom of the elementary school has not been maintained properly. What do you mean by on sour cream walls? Sour cream, why has the color of the walls turned sour? Because years back it has been painted. Now it has been worn, it has become old, and thus needs some maintenance of the classroom. Okay? Then he says the pale cream walls. The sour cream walls means the pale cream walls, which must have been painted long many years ago. Okay? Have been decorated with donated money. Okay? Donated money, and the wall is laden with Shakespeare's head. Then there is a portrait of Talus Valley as well as the portrait of a world map. Okay, children? So, what is he saying? Even though portraits that have been put up on the walls of the elementary school classroom, they all have been donated by the rich and the wealthy people of the society. So, he means to say that the children living in the slum or the schools of the slum are not in a position to afford even the basic necessities of a classroom. So he says, see children, in a slum school, having a Shakespeare's portrait is of no use because no literary education is being provided to the children of slum. Okay? So what he means to say that these sour cream walls, they have been turned off white because many years back they have been painted, and now this morbid atmosphere of this classroom, death-like or disease-like atmosphere of the classroom. What do you mean by morbid? MORBID means this dull and dreary atmosphere of the classroom. Okay? In a corner stands a portrait of Shakespeare. Okay? This portrait is ironical here because in a slum classroom, there's no literary education being provided to these children, but a master's portrait being housed in a classroom where no serious teaching takes place. And these children living in the slums or studying in slum schools, they do not know whose portrait is hung on the walls of their classroom and what is he known as? Is he the greatest poet or the dramatist of the world? They are unaware. Okay? And plus, no knowledge, no literary knowledge is being provided to the children studying in the slum schools. So the children of the slums perhaps can never taste the joys of literature. Okay, children? Similarly, there is a picture of a beautiful valley full of blossoms, full of fragrant flowers. This valley, Talos Valley, is in Austria. Okay? And it is full of blossoms. Blossoms means flowers, full of fragrant flowers. Now, the poet here is trying to signify that the children living or studying in the elementary school of slums, they would never be able to experience the fragrance and beauty since they are condemned. Condemned means मजबूर हैं, उनके हालातों से मजबूर हैं. They are condemned to live in the slums. So they would never be able to enjoy the fragrance and the beauty of the Talos Valley, which is fully blooming with flowers. Got it? Now the entire atmosphere in the school is one of inactivity and morbid atmosphere, which contrasts with the cloudless sky at dawn. Dawn means, DAWN means early hours, early morning, and the concrete domes which override the cities and the huge buildings. So, where do these slums exist? In the outskirts of the big cities, the dingy lanes, the narrow helmets, unhygienic surroundings, right? Pathetic situations existing in or prevailing in those areas where the slum children dwell. So that's what he says. In the early hours, the sky looks cloudless at dawn, and the huge buildings riding all cities. Okay, got it till here? Now, see a open-handed map awarding the world its world. Now, an open-handed map of the world in the classroom reflects and projects to their grim world. See, there's another picture. That is the picture of the world map. Now, the poet says, the world map given to us with all its bounties is useless to the slum children studying in the elementary schools of slums, because it projects only the grim world. When these children look out through the windows of the classroom, they are able to view only the slums, those narrow lanes, the helmets, unhygienic surroundings. So, the world given to us with all its bounties is beyond the reach of these poor children living in the slum areas. So, however, for these poor children, there is no world beyond their poverty and hunger. Got it? The rich world outside, which they can view through the windows of the classroom, is not the real world. And the world of these slum children is dark and misty. See here, for these children, these windows through which they look out, not this map, their world is, when they look out through the windows of the classroom, they are able to view their dirty helmets, the dingy lanes, the foul smell, the prevailing unhygienic conditions in the slums is their world. Their world is not the map, that is the world map that is hung on the wall of the classroom. Where they do not exist at all in the map. And thus he says, where all their futures painted with fog, and their life begins in the fog and ends in fog. From birth till death, they have to survive in those dingy lanes, in those prevailing unhygienic conditions where they are not able to afford the basic necessities of life. Their future is painted with fog. What do you mean by fog? Fog is here reflecting to darkness and mist. And the future is bleak. It is confined to those narrow and dusty streets covered with the dull concrete sky. Covered with the dark and dull sky. Where they dwell, जहाँ पर ये बच्चे रहते हैं, those streets are narrow. They are sealed. वो covered हैं with the dark and dull lead sky. Generally, the sky is bright blue. So now the poet says, the children of slum, they are far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of words. That means these children they live in the dusty streets. These children are far away from the rivers, the mountain capes, and stars. Now, what do you mean by stars? Stars of words means They are away from the better opportunities of education. Okay, they are deprived of the environment or the atmosphere of availing proper education. They are the ones who fight the battle of life unarmed. Okay, so this is all the poet is trying to explain in the second stanza. Then in the third stanza, he is going to talk about the ill-equipped classroom. I would like to read out the lines of the third stanza. Surely Shakespeare's wicked, the map a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal, for lives that slyly turn in the cramped holes from fog to endless night. On the slag heap these children wear skins peeped through by bones and spectacles of steel with mended glass like bottle bits on stones. All of their time and space are foggy slum, so blot their maps with slums as big as two. Now, children, in this stanza, the children fight the battle of life, ill-equipped. So they say, no wonder they find Shakespeare wicked and the map a bad example. Why is Shakespeare wicked and the map a bad example, children? Because in the elementary school classroom in a slum, neither literary beauty nor scenic beauty, attracts the attention of these children. As you all know, the various donated portraits that have been hung on the walls of the classroom are meaningless to these children because they do not know who is Shakespeare, and no knowledge of literature is being provided to these children living in the slums or studying in the slum schools. What they are acquainted with is only filth and dirt. So that is the reason he says that even Shakespeare's wicked and the map is also bad example, because the maps do not display their slum in the maps, and that is why the map is considered here bad example. And it is ironical that the children cannot locate this slum on the map, although it is their world. It is their world, no doubt. But due to the indignities prevailing in the society, or the people having and those who are not having, that difference is creating a gulf between the rich and the poor. So that is why he is considering it as a wicked one, and is saying these children have lost their sense of beauty and appreciation. So they are feeling they are being cheated on being deprived of the skills of Shakespeare, as well as the thrilling sensation of the sun and the ships and the tender emotions of love. And only one sensation arouses them, that is the sensation of hunger. Okay, children? So these slum children have to make continuous efforts. How? For lives that slyly turn on the cramped holes. The lives of these slum children secretly, they try to, they wish to come out of those cramped holes, those, most huts in which they dwell. It is said that from fog to endless night, these children living in the slums, their life is so uncertain. They are doomed to live in those areas, unhygienic prevailing conditions. Their life starts from fog of uncertainty and ends with their death. So they are not able to break those barriers, that is, differentiating them from the rich class society. Then he says, on the slag heap, these children wear skins peeped through by bones. Slag heaps here is nothing but the waste material. The childhood of the children of slums get wasted on heaps of slag and garbage, and they look mere skeletons as their bodies appear to be bony, peeping through their cover of their thin skins. That means their bodies lack flesh, and thus they appear to be very bony. And even the spectacles they wear are those discarded by the rich. The spectacles made of steel and the glasses have been mended and repaired. Okay? They appear like bits of bottle on stones. So these children spend all their time in these foggy slums which comprise their world. Their world is not that map which is put up on the wall, but rather the world is that foggy slum. Okay, that's the reason he calls the map a very wicked one, because their lives are, cramped in the holes. Then he says, the slums where life is worse than death, they are like a blot on the civilized world. All of their time and space are foggy slum. So blot their maps with slums as big as doom. So what we need to do? So there is an urgent need to blot out these slums. We have to break all the barriers and provide the best opportunities of education, as well as give them, new avenues to explore, so that they too can lead dignified and civilized lives. Okay, children, with this we end the third stanza. I would like to read the lines of the fourth stanza. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes the window, and these windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs break open till they break the town, and show the children to green fields, and make their world run azure on gold sands, and let their tongues run naked into books. The white and green leaves open, history theirs whose language is the sun. In this stanza, the poet Stephen Spender is trying to explain the appalling reality that there is no activity in the slum schools unless a governor, a school inspector, or a visitor comes on a round of the school. Only then this map becomes their window, because only through this they can see, they view the world beyond their slums. Only during the visits of these bureaucrats or these inspectors, only those days some activity takes place in the schools and they are able to view the world beyond the slums. Otherwise, their world is what they see through the window of that classroom. Okay? Those four walls of the classroom confine them to their morbid world. Their lives are sealed in the cemeteries of these slums. So now what is the poet trying to say? So these slums are, shutting them. They are confining them and their lives. They are just like catacombs. They are like those cemeteries where the dead bodies are buried. And so their lives are also shut because they are not able to, change their lives. They are not able to break those barriers of the existing slums, and they are not able to merge their sections with the rich and wealthy of the outer world. So thus the poet says, break, oh break. So let all those barriers be broken where the slum children exist, and break those barriers. Till then, they break the town and show the children to green fields. So all those barriers should be broken, which are not permitting these children to, to bask in the vastness of this world. So what is the poet saying? Expose them to the green fields. Let them run carefree on the golden sands. Azure on gold sands means let them run free on the golden sands of the beaches. And let their tongues run naked into books. What do you mean by this? Let their tongues run naked into books means let these children not be confined to these four walls, and he is desiring that these children should be able to enjoy their fundamental rights to education. Let their tongues run naked into books means let us give them the opportunities to express themselves, to get the basic right to education. Okay, children? That means they should be allowed to read the books that are new and current as well as the old ones. And not only this, not the books would help them to know about this other world, but rather even the nature around them. In the last line, the poet is ending the poem on a positive note. The poet feels that history theirs whose language is the sun. That people who are ignited by the fire of knowledge and learning are the ones who would create history. So he would like opportunities to be made available to the children. He wishes that all the differences among the rich and the poor, and all forms of injustice should be wiped out so that no childhood gets lost in the gloomy darkness of ignorance in the slums. With this note, positive note, the poet ends the poem. He wants that all the children should be given equal opportunities. There should be no injustice and indignities prevailing in the society. And only then we can have a better future for our children. With this, I end the explanation of this poem. I would now like to discuss few questions. So what does the expression far, far from gusty waves signify? Children, the gusty waves here signify that instead of enjoying the childhood in the lap of nature, in the open grounds or beaches, the childhood of these children is confined to the dark and dingy walls of the slums. Now, what is rootless weeds? The expression is a simile, as you know. The comparison has been drawn with the weak-looking, pale, undernourished faces of the children. Their worn-out faces are covered by their unkept scattered hair, and they appear like rootless weeds. Rootless here suggests that children are lacking proper nourishment, as without proper roots, a plant cannot stand erect. In the similar manner, these children lack of proper nourishment and food, they lack stability. Okay? Now, the next question is, explain reciting father's gnarled disease. Okay, children? The slum children, like the paper-seeming boy, as I told you, he has inherited the disease and despair of the parents, and he has become the carrier of his father's disease as well as poverty. Okay? Now, children, why is Shakespeare referred to as wicked? As you all know, Shakespeare is an epitome of high literary excellence. But in the slum schools, where hardly any learning takes place, and where children are troubled by disease and despair, literary training is a far cry. Fine? Explain from fog to endless night. I told you, the expression describes the miserable condition and pathetic state or the lives of the slum children. Their life begins from foggy, uncertain mornings till late at night. These children make various attempts to live a better life despite all odds. Okay? As you all know, the lives of the slum children is full of misery, hopelessness and suffering. Now, one more question I would like to share here. What does Shakespeare's head suggest? The expression is ironically used in an elementary classroom in a slum where the value of education is minimal. Reference to Shakespeare or a good literature may raise hopes and aspirations which will never be fulfilled. So, probably there is a portrait of Shakespeare hanging on a wall, but it is meaningless to these poor children studying in the elementary school classroom in a slum. Okay, why has the poet used the image cloudless dawn and civilized society? These images they highlight dull life in the urban slums. Okay, and the elementary school in a slum is squeezed and suppressed under the so-called high civilized societies with tall structured buildings, and these children are unaware of the beauty of the sky at dawn, as those buildings veil the existence of sun as well as even the big domes. Next is belled, flowery, tireless valley. This expression refers to, as I told you, the natural beauty which the slum children are deprived of, and these children pass much of their life on the heaps of garbage and slag, and never get an opportunity to enjoy the beauty of mountains, flowery valleys, blue sands, neither the opportunities of education. Fine, children? Where do their lives slyly turn? Slyly means secretly. See, their lives hardly have any new opportunities. They cleverly turn and twist in their small helmets or those cramped holes, and they spend their entire life struggling and striving for survival in those dirty, dingy, narrow lanes. Okay, children? So, I would now like to explain you that number of metaphors as well as similes have been used. And before I begin with the simile and metaphor, I would like to discuss one more question, and that is, why does the poet see slums as big as doom? The foggy, filthy slums which comprise the world, for the slum children, they are living in nightmares. The life in the slums is very worse than death. Okay, these slums are stalking the world just like death stalks its victims anywhere and any time. With this, I would like to move ahead about the various images and symbols used in the poem by Stephen Spender. Few images in the poetry used are gusty waves, rootless weeds. Okay, rootless weeds has been used as a simile here. Gusty is for the energetic children. The paper seeming boy has been used for the thin and lean child. Twisted bones that he has attained from his parents. Sour cream walls, lack of maintenance, and painted long years ago. Shakespeare's head, no literary education being provided, so it is here ironical. Tireless Valley. This valley exists in Austria, and its natural beauty and the fragrant flowers blooming all through the year fascinate the rich class people, but these poor children living in the slums, they have lost their sense of, enjoying the beauty of nature and praising the beauty. Ships and sun. These pictures only entice, or these images just entice the children, attract these children to move into such comforts where they too can enjoy a civilized life. Cramped holes, I told you, those Moors huts, gold sands. So, in the last stanza, where the poet wants the richer class or the bureaucrats and the aristocratic society to break the barriers of the slums and acquaint them to the bounties of the beautiful earth, so that they too can enjoy and live their life happily and joyfully. Now here in this poem, few similes have been used, children. The rootless weeds, this expression, as I told you, has been used by the poet to describe the untidy and uncombed hair of the slum children. And rootless weeds, what does this suggest? Lack of stability. So these children, they lack proper nutrition, and so they cannot stand stable. Next is like bottle bits on stones. It can be, the simile graphically describes the shattered glasses of the spectacles some slum children have worn. If not shattered, the glasses are heavily scratched or chipped off, broken. Another simile used here is like catacombs. Catacombs means the children dwelling in dark and dingy rooms which resemble subterranean cemeteries. Cemeteries are nothing but they are underground burials. So they are known as here compared to catacombs. The windows of these rooms look like the lids of catacombs. So he has compared that the windows of the classroom in which the children study, they look like the lids, the covers of catacombs. Now children, I would like to discuss with you few metaphors used in this particular poem. I think in these lines, the poet has used rat's eye. Rat's eye means what? Rat's eye means that his eyes are bulging out, and like a rat, he is in anxiety in search of food. In search of food he is. Now children, exactly what is a metaphor? Metaphor is the standard or literal meaning of a word denoting a thing, quality, or action is applied to another in the form of a statement of identity instead of comparison. In this, the words like and as are not used. The poet does not say that one object is like another. He says it is another. So rat's eye, the metaphor, is suggestive of the boy's timidity and anxiety. He is timid like a rat and is anxious and is in search for food and security. Father's gnarl disease is again a metaphor. The father's son is suffering from rheumatism, a disease that has left his body crooked. Now, the quality of the boy's life has been affected by the father's handicap. Okay? Another one is used, squirrel's game. A squirrel enjoying playing freely in the outside, in the open garden, hopping across the lawn and climbing up the tree, then hiding in the hole of the bark of a tree. The boy also wants to play, so he is imagining himself to be as liberated like the squirrel, but he cannot do that. And he has to sit in the dull and uninteresting classroom. But he has dreams in his eyes to live a better life. Next one is tree room. What do you mean by tree room? It is the hiding place of the squirrel. A hollow in a tree. एक hole रहता है in the bark, and thus the squirrel hops out of that hollow and once again jumps into it, relaxes there for a few seconds and again comes out of the hollow, which in the boy's imagination is full of fun and mystery. So that's why it is a contrast to the gloomy classroom. Next is futures painted with a fog. Fog means during winters, it is all spread in the environment, and due to fog, the visibility decreases. Same way, the slum children future is also blurred, but it is blurred due to hopelessness and lack of empathy. And what is lead sky? Lead sky is also a metaphor used. The sky is normally bright and blue. And what does lead sky suggest here? A dark and dull sky, just as the base metal. In other words, there is no hope for the better future of the children. Okay, children? And another one is used as spectacles of steel. I told you. However, a more plausible explanation can be that the skeleton bodies of the slum children look like wiry framework of steel, just like that of a pair of spectacles. This can also be explained if a question is given to explain the expression spectacles of steel. Okay, children? Now, I would like to brief. With this, we end today's lecture. I wish you all good day. Keep studying, keep working hard, and keep yourself safe and healthy. Thank you. Goodbye.